All right, folks, welcome back to the channel and to a brand new series on the channel called Hickory Chats. I'm excited to bring you this because I've been meaning to start a podcast for some time, but wasn't quite sure how to go about doing it. Well, lately I've been trying to figure out how to celebrate World Hickory Day, which is coming up on May 1st. If you're watching this video when it premieres on April 28th, you've got a couple days to figure out how you're going to celebrate World Hickory Day. But I figured the best way to celebrate World Hickory Day was to talk with the guy who came up with the idea. That's Durel Billy. Durel hails from Washington State in the Pacific Northwest. He's been playing hickory golf since 2013. Was actually playing hickory golf up there before there was a Northwest Hickory Players group or any hickory golf events for that matter, and took it upon himself to start some hickory golf events. So we're going to get into, over the course of this conversation, why he started playing hickory golf back in 2013, how he organized some of those first events, how those events helped inform the idea that became National Hickory Day in 2016, which eventually became World Hickory Day. And we're going to talk about his passion for the game and where it comes from. It's specifically, we're going to talk about the individual that he came across when he started doing his initial research into hickory golf, the individual who's inspired him to continue playing hickory golf and doing what he does, spreading the great game of golf to as many people as he can through social media. If you follow Durel through social media, you'll know him better as Billy Bogey. He's on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, pretty much every social media outlet there is, and has an extensive following, specifically with younger people. So the point of these conversations isn't for me to just kind of fire questions at somebody and have them regurgitate answers. I really wanted to have kind of a casual clubhouse type conversation like you'd have with somebody after a round of golf over a beer. And I hope we accomplish that. Before we get into the conversation, there were a couple technical things that I tried to cover up, technical difficulties rather. And so in the first 5 minutes, the audio is a little choppy, but it clears up after the 4 or 5 minute mark. And I also have heard that most people listen to these kinds of videos, they just listen to them through headphones. They don't even really watch the video. But if you do watch the video, you'll notice that the audio and the video don't sync up sometimes. I'm guessing that's a Zoom issue, but it might be a Hickory Hacker issue too. I don't know. At any rate, I think that the conversation is still very interesting, and if you just pop in some headphones and do something else, you won't even notice the audio-video sync issues. So I'm not going to waste any more time with this intro. Let's get into the conversation with Durel Billy, and I'll be back after the conversation is over with a few parting thoughts.
How you doing, man?
Oh, man, I'm good. How are you on this late evening?
Pretty good. Yeah, it's early enough for you, right? 7:30 or so?
Yeah. I was like, I can't have my beer until after I talk to Christian.
Well, I really appreciate you doing this, and I have no problem staying up late to make it happen.
Right on. I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on your platform and doing this. So it's pretty honored.
Cool. So you call yourself a golf ambassador, and so do I. And that's kind of like the first touchstone between you and I, is that we're both trying to basically share our passion for golf. And so that's what what initially made me want to talk to you, was that you're doing something similar to what I'm doing in golf, but in a different way and possibly for, different reasons. And I'm really interested to find out more about that over the course of our conversation. Because, speaking for myself here, golf is a spiritual game for me. It's a way to learn about yourself, a way to learn about life. And it's more than a game, for me. And I can tell when I come across other people where there's a passion that speaks to something deeper than just, I like going out and walking around on a golf course and hitting a ball. Like there's something deep to it. And I sense that with you.
No, you're right. It's deeper. It's far deeper, and people don't understand. Like you said, it's almost it's just that one person in the crowd that you can see that just looks at the game a little different, right? It's,
right.
You can see how they move, how they speak, And then with social media, you could see what they post and how they post. You could see where there's just, it doesn't, it's not for the likes. It's what they care about. That's the content they're putting out. And I have to tell you, when I look at some of your vlogs, and kudos to you for getting your numbers up to 600, I believe, or something, the last I saw on YouTube. That's
thank you.
tough to do. That's tough to do. And I love how you format it and you're putting it out and it's all uniform, but you're going in the right direction. It's going to go for you, man. So just keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I really appreciate hearing that. You know, the whole YouTube thing kind of came up on me, you know, unexpectedly. I didn't really, you know, plan on doing what it's become at this point. And it's been really cool connecting with other people who have appreciated it. And I watch other people's stuff on YouTube all the time so I can get better. And, you know, I've told people in the past that it's almost more fun for me to shoot the videos sometimes than it is to play the actual round, because I'm enjoying the process of making the videos and telling the stories of the golf courses or the individuals that have some connection to the golf course, either from history or from the present. And so, yeah, if no one watched it, I think I would still enjoy putting it together, because it's been really gratifying for me.
Yeah, well, that's the ambassador. There's the other piece of it. It's the creative aspect of it, right? And that's the deeper. You're telling a story. What you're doing, you're setting the scene. You're doing the video, and I love that. That's why I start to call myself now. I said I'm not an influencer because I'm not out there selling product, but I like being that creative. So sometimes you think maybe it's a little bit vain, but for me, it's not. I'm just showing myself playing. Hopefully, I can inspire one person, another person, just to pick up the clubs and play. Whether it's modern, whether it's hickory, inspire them to play and just enjoy it on the deeper level, right? And so setting up the camera and just shooting angles and things like that. And, you know, I got into this. I have to tell you this, because someone invited me to a Facebook forum. And on that Facebook forum, someone put out, what's your top 10 golf courses? What's your top 10? It's really just, I mean, to me, that's subjective. It's whatever your top 10 golf courses are. And I put down my top 10, but I didn't put them, obviously, in order. They were just golf courses that came to mind to me. Some guy responded to that and goes, what? You know, XYZ golf courses, these other golf courses have put all those to shame. And, you know, one of those golf courses wouldn't even make top 100. And I'm like sitting there and I'm just thinking, this guy just doesn't get it. And it's not always about how the course is laid out compared to another golf course. It's how you feel when you step on that golf course. What kind of energy you get from that particular golf course on that particular day. And why it's your favorite golf course may not have anything to do with the architect's line. And so, you know, he just kind of misses it. And those are the kind of people I'm like, I don't really have time for that. I don't even respond. You know, I wouldn't even respond. But that's, so you understand what I'm talking about. You laid it out perfectly. When it's like ambassador or just a creative, you like the videotape. You just like to create this. You're creating your own little world, really. You're letting other people in. I think it's fantastic, man.
Yeah,
so
I appreciate
doing it.
Yeah, thank you, and you too. I mean, I think that I was looking at your social media stuff, and you have 12.8 thousand people on TikTok following you, which I think is incredible. Like almost 13,000 people. And you know, I know that the demographic of TikTok is the youngest of any other social media outlet. So you're reaching a really young audience, and a lot of them, which is really cool.
I get way more out of TikTok than anything. I mean, I love the Instagram for certain things, but yeah, I think obviously you do for a reason. Like you said, you got into something kind of on accident doing a YouTube thing, but there was a need for it. It's like your gift to the game. That's what you're doing. And some people They may say, "Oh, I don't like what he's doing," but you know what? You're killing it.
Yeah,
And
thanks.
you just have to continue to do it the way that you like to do it and the way you want to do it, because no one else is doing it.
Yeah.
So, and then,
Yeah.
you know, if they wanted to critique it, they should be doing it. Do it better.
Well, and I hear what you're saying. And, you know, I've had a couple of run-ins with some traditionalists who don't like the fact that I call myself a hacker, because they think well, I'm not going to speak for them, but my impression is that they think it disparages Hickory Golf to attach what they think is purposefully bad play. And that's not at all what I'm trying to do when I call myself a hacker. I mean, I'm basically trying to take the term back from being a negative term for being, and instead be a term for somebody who loves the game despite the fact that they're not that good at it. And, you know, when I was playing modern golf before I got into Hickory, my wife and I lived in Kansas, and I was playing with a Wednesday night group of guys, and we all called ourselves hackers because we love the game. We came out there every week to play, but we knew we weren't that good. We're trying to get better. But
yeah,
to me, it's just, you know, I think it's so much more accessible to basically acknowledge the fact that you're not a good golfer, but you're getting better. Because how many other people out there can relate to that, you know, more so than they can what they see on the PGA every week? You know, I think there's just so many more people to reach by saying, hey, you don't have to be good at this game to love it and enjoy it. And, you know, my personal story of getting into Hickory Golf, which I've told people before through my videos, was basically that I just got frustrated with modern golf. I had all this technology in my bag. I even took some lessons, and I just couldn't see the kind of improvement that I thought that I should be seeing with all that. And I got frustrated. I almost stopped playing the game because I was like, well, I'm at the end of the road here. What else is there to do at this point that I haven't tried already? And then all of a sudden one day on YouTube, see a video with some guys playing Hickory Golf. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. Maybe I'll try that. And that set me down a path to falling in love with the game again in a way that I never was in love with it before with modern clubs. And it taught me, you know, looking back on myself in hindsight, that I had lost track of what was really important about the game when I was so intent on trying to get lower scores. You know, I had forgotten, or I just, you know, maybe didn't even realize that there's an entirely different kind of game out there for me to appreciate that taps into all these other things that I'm interested in: history, working with my hands, you know, all this stuff that I just wasn't doing with modern golf. And it opened up a whole new world for me. And, you know, I was going to ask you, you know, what was the entry point for you into Hickory Golf? What got you interested in even trying it?
Well, man, first of all, that's beautiful, because that's exactly one of the reasons why I got into it, with just kind of losing the love. And I always would say, you will fall in love with the game again if you play Hickory. You will fall in love with the game again. And that's same thing, but I'm a little different. I can't build a damn thing, man. So working with my hands and all that, that's out. So more it was, so, but for me, and I would say Hickory Hacker, keep the name, is very catchy, and who cares what those traditionalists are saying? It's perfect. Right. Absolutely perfect. So my story at Hickory was, I got into it, I like to say on accident, but then I've come to realize that there aren't any accidents. The universe doesn't make any mistakes. So 2013, I got into Hickory. I started our current golf club. It's called, the name is AP National Golf Club. It's our golf club here in Washington, which is Atlantic Pacific National. So AP National for short. And we had regular golf tournaments throughout the year. And towards the end of the year, I just wanted to create a fun event. You know, honestly, when it comes to the traditional side, I was a guy that was like, I don't like T-shirts on the golf course. I'm that guy. I've relaxed since, but I wanted to do something where guys had to dress up and wear knickers and a tie or a bow tie and do something fun. So initially, I just wanted to you dressed up nice and just played old Ben Hogans or old Golden Bears, or, you know, just some old irons. Go to Value Village, pull some old clubs out of the garage, and let's go play with some persimmon head woods and see who can shoot the lowest score. And so as I started to do some research on yardages and things like that, I came across Hickory. I learned about John Shippen, you know, as I started to do some research. So I like to say it was an accident, but it was a discovery. And like you said, you found out, you learn more about the history, and you wanted to work with your hands, things like that. And in modern golf, I don't know too many guys that go down the road of the history aspect of it, unless it's major time. That's the only time they really talk about the history. So Hickory Golf allows you to dive back into the beginning, you know, the early years. So I started going down John Shippen, and I'm thinking, who is this guy? And I started doing more, and I'm like, are you serious? And I started doing more. And so that was the origin. That was just kind of my boom, my big bang, if you will. This just got me into it. So yeah, it was just in an event for our golf club, a fun event. And then I just started hunting for Hickory clubs at that point. And I created a Hickory division. I said, if I'm the only one in the Hickory division, at least I'll win a tournament this year.
You brought up a bunch of things there that I want to come back to, but I'm glad you mentioned John Shippen, because Tom Coyne mentions you in a course called America when he was playing. What was the course that you guys were playing that day? Was that Chambers Bay or
Meadow Park? Yeah, Meadow Park Golf Course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And you mentioned John Shippen, and I didn't know who he was until I saw you mention him, and that obviously piqued my interest. And his story is amazing. I don't know if his story should be just as known, in my opinion, as any other, you know, major figure in golf history. But for those who don't know, I mean, obviously, there's a website actually that's got a lot of his bio information on it. But I just wanted to touch on a little bit of it here for people listening. But he was not only the first U.S.-born golf professional, first black professional. This is 1896 that he's playing in the second U.S. Open at Shinnecock.
Correct.
Just incredible. And then from 1896 to 1896 to 1913, played in 5 U.S. Opens. And then massive gap between 1913 and 1948. Ted Rhodes is the next black player to play in a U.S. Open. Talk a little bit about your discovery of John Shippen and how that inspired your desire to kind of carry on a legacy somewhat with at least telling people about his history and who he was.
Sure. And that's, I mean, it gives me goosebumps just to hear that again. And it's exactly how I felt when I just imagine, I started playing golf in 2000. And so all to 2013, I'd not once seen one Hickory golf player on the golf course in Washington. Didn't see one. Okay. I may have seen wood shafted clubs hanging in a clubhouse or something like that, but I didn't see anyone playing them anywhere. But I'm doing this dive and I pull up John Shippen and I look at this black and white photo and I'm like, who's this guy? And I look and it says African American and I'm like, what? And I'm like, 1896. And I'm thinking, I started going through my head of images and I'm thinking, okay, I'm watching tournaments. There's Tiger, you know, Ted Rhodes, as you mentioned, you know, Lee Elder, you know, Calvin P. I'm like, where in the world is this Shippen name? And I'm like, first American-born golf professional. And I'm like, well, I could win a lot of bar bets with this one.
Yeah.
There's no one that knows this guy's name. And then but the more I started to dig into it, I'm like, this guy was like 16 years old playing in a U.S. Open. And he was leading at one point and he had a bad hole. And as that dive, and then obviously the greatest game ever played, when I love that game, I love that movie, excuse me. But when you dive into that field, that story with Varden and Francis we met, and you go in that field, John Shippen played in that. He was there. Yeah. So that historical moment, I'm like, that guy was in the field. And I'm like, that to me, that's a story. That's a story that needs to be told. And as I was going through his story, I reached out to my uncle who still lives in New Jersey, and I was talking to him about Shady Rest, where John, the last golf course he was at. And my uncle knew of a gentleman that caddied for John at some point. And then he got me in contact. I can't think of the gentleman's name right now, that started the foundation for John Shippen.
Okay.
And we got on the phone, and I got to hear, man, it was just a deep dive. I was overwhelmed because there were people trying to keep his name and legacy alive in New Jersey.
Okay.
And here I am, 13 years playing golf, never even heard of this man. And I don't know anyone else that knows him. I'm like, this is insane to me. So Hickory, I just said, you know what? I want to play like John Shippen played. I want to play some old clubs. I want to play these Hickory clubs and see what I can do. And it just lit a fire in me, Christian, to be honest with you. Because I'm just thinking, how does this get lost? I mean, a lot of history does get forgotten, and for Black golfers that look like me, it's kind of a big deal. And I think that it's been missing for a long time. It's been a long time coming.
Right.
We love the game just as much as anyone else, and we're just a big part of the history as well.
Right.
And especially John Shippen. So, but I'm glad his name is getting out there more. There are more people learning about him. And before this is over, I want to show you something when it comes to history, a Hickory club that maybe you know about, maybe you don't, but kind of along the lines of Black history in golf. I want to share something with you.
I think your story about Shippen's really cool because I've found for myself, you kind of get these individuals that you never knew anything about that you find some kind of connection to. And, investigating the history of the game in this country alone will take you back, 120 something years, 125 years, more than that. And there are so many people who have fallen through the cracks that just have not continued to be part of the regular conversation. And I got to say that's probably my favorite aspect of Hickory golf is that, it's an entry point to learning about all these people, from golf architects that you just don't hear about. And to your point earlier about just, the condition of golf courses and things like that, like I, tell people all the time, one of the joys of playing with Hickory clubs is that you can play what some people would call a goat track and have a great time. Because the clubs were actually designed to deal with conditions like you would say, oh, this is a poorly conditioned course. Like, well, back in the day, you would have these kinds of bare spots all over the place to deal with. And you had the special club to take care of that in the 1800s called a rut iron.
I have one of those.
Yeah.
And just think of a rut iron, how long that thing is and how small the head is. I mean, those guys were phenomenal golfers to play with tools that were designed for any crazy lie that could come about.
Right.
Golfers today couldn't deal with wagon tracks.
No, can you imagine
wheel tracks on a golf course?
Yeah. Can you imagine the outrage that people would have if they played golf and they had wagon ruts in the middle of the fairway? Yeah, I mean, the game was obviously very different back then in a lot of ways, but, playing with these clubs and learning what they were originally designed for, learning the kinds of courses that people were playing gives you a completely different perspective on what a good golf course or a bad golf course is today. Again, I'm, speaking as the ambassador here, I'm coming from a perspective of trying to make the game more accessible to people. And I, have focused on skill level not being something that should stop you from playing. And I've also kind of focused on if you can't afford to play the pristine golf courses and the really rich ones that you can't get into because you're not a member or whatever, you can still have those same kinds of special experiences playing golf on your local muni or a 9-hole course or even a par 3 executive course. It's all about the perspective you bring to it, not the actual setting. that dictates that. And Hickory Golf has taught me that for sure.
Yeah, agree. Because, when you're talking about the architect, or then you're talking about a player or the first head professional or something, and he came from, a certain part of the country, or, he was like a Jim Barnes winning the first PGA and things like that. There are different connections that will get you salivating and pique a regular golfer's interest to, to say, what, that golf course now is on my bucket list because of what I learned on the Hickory Hacker Show, right? What he talked about, the mounds, there are these different things. So it, just saying, oh, okay, the same old top, whatever golf courses they are. Oh yeah, I gotta play it. It's a bucket list. I'm like, well, okay, yeah, it's a bucket. You may not even enjoy yourself. So it's when you start talking about the history, you start talking about the architects. Where, trust me, before 2013, I didn't care who the architects were, and I really didn't know who some of the golf professionals were. I didn't. It didn't hit my radar, man. It wasn't a thing for me. But then, so Hickory Golf helped me just appreciate architect line and look at golf courses a little bit differently, and just that, knowing certain that Harry Vardon came to Tacoma and walked on I played the same golf course Harry Vardon walked on. To me, that's pretty cool. That's kind of geek. That's kind of golf geeky stuff to me. Yeah. And so Hickory Golf allows you to it gives you more. It just opens up a lot more for you. And like you said, you don't have to be the richest and you don't have to be the best to enjoy golf as it was, as we always say, as it was meant to be played.
Right. Well, so I mentioned TikTok earlier, and you've got a younger audience that knows who you are and is now seeing on a regular basis somebody with a really positive attitude talking about how cool people play golf. And what do you think we can do as ambassadors of the game to get more young people interested in it? Because you and I are among, the youngest Hickory golfers that I'm aware of. There's a growing group of younger people playing Hickory golf. But this is a bigger question than just Hickory golf. This is just golf in general. How do you get younger people interested in it? What are some of the things that you found have worked?
Well, one is that social media platform, just kind of putting ourselves out there, right? And just showing yourself just playing, people like yourself and I, and it just doing it. And let me go back on the Hickory side. So on Instagram, maybe a year or so, a couple years ago, I started posting more modern swings than Hickory. And a guy, he went to my comments and he's like, you're only Instagram famous because you play Hickory. I need to see more Hickory stuff from you. And it was funny, but I'm far from Instagram famous, but I got a kick out of that to just know that it's like, okay, it's like people want to see it. They want to see it, man. And when you're playing and you're just doing your thing, they want it. So the best advice I would say is just we have to continue to put it out there, and we have to get out and collaborate. It'd be kind of what we're doing now. We're having a conversation, or it could be get together and have a play day, or maybe you and I can jump on and do a live sometime, on TikTok or on Instagram, and do those types of things, because people like to see real life, real speed, just interaction. And so it's just more of that. You just have to continue to put it out there.
I think you're absolutely right. Social media and just putting stuff out there so people see it is kind of the key. And like with anything, if you do what you're passionate about, it resonates with people. And, young people, I think this generation, a couple generations younger than me, I'm 40, I'll be 44 this year, but younger than me seem to be genuinely interested in history and things. And I'm finding through the YouTube channel a way younger demographic than I ever thought would be interested in Hickory golf specifically. And I've also noticed that just within the last 10 years or so, that the interest in the architecture of the golf courses and the figures behind that is bigger than it's ever been, and it's fueled by younger golfers. You know, are you seeing the same kind of thing where, you know, I mean, you and I are examples of it as younger people interested in the history of the game playing hickory golf. I mean, it bodes well for the future of not only hickory golf, but in golf in general.
Well, 100%. Well, just, I mean, when you think I mean, I'll say it this way. There are some, you know, when they talk about growing the game and doing things for younger golfers, there are some, the game needs the younger golfers to come in, but they also need the 20 somethings and the 30 somethings that don't want to run around on the soccer field or be on the basketball court getting injured, what have you. Some of those, but you know, you get new growth from those areas too. It's not just the younger kids, right? And so, but there are golf courses that don't want kids on their golf course. You know, they may say they want them, but they don't want them at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning during prime time. I've seen it personally. I mean, I'll go all the way back to 2013 when AP National was started. I also started with my buddy Gerald McClendon. We started 9-hole junior series with AP National, and we played. It was just a 9-hole tournament series for kids that are trying to make their golf team. They didn't have any place to play. They weren't good enough to play AJGA or you know their local state amateur tournaments or junior tournaments, if you will. There was nothing. There was no middle tournaments for these kids. Nothing existed. So we created something, and it took off, and it grew bigger than we could handle when we first started it. So, but the other golf courses didn't have any junior tournaments, and so we would take the kids around. I had kids that their parents would drive them, some of them 50, 75 miles just to come play 9 holes in one of our events.
Wow.
Which is unheard of. So it's kids, they want to play, and they do like the hickory. When they see someone walking around in knickers and you see someone with a piece of wood, they want to know what in the heck is going on. So the best promotion outside of the social media aspect, Christian, was one is just showing up, and this showing up in a group and always dress the part.
Right.
And that's how, when our group started, that's what we did. We did small events that grew to larger events, and it was just showing up in numbers. And people were like, "What are you guys doing?" And the first thing now is what's the first thing whenever you go somewhere and someone sees you and you're in your knickers, you got your Stuart Jacoby one strap on your shoulder. What's the first thing they ask you?
The first thing they always ask me is that club going to break? Because they assume that wooden shafts mean that they're just going to fall apart on me if I start to play them. And, you know, as far as the clothes are concerned, you know, I think that I was fairly self-conscious of, you know, dressing the part in the beginning, but I realized that, you know, I thought it was fun, first of all, to dress like they would have dressed when they were playing with these clubs. And it was a good, I don't know, my wife talks about this a lot too, because I've always been somebody who's been worried about what other people are thinking. And I won't do certain things because of the possibility that someone might criticize it or whatever. I've always had that kind of in my past. In hickory golf and showing up to the golf course wearing knickers and the whole thing. Yeah, it got me to the point where I was able to, you know, be more confident, you know, because now I show up and I don't care if somebody makes fun of me. They don't. First of all, I mean, that's the misconception. I've never been made fun of, at least not to my face, on a golf course wearing what I'm wearing. But it's an instant conversation starter. And even when I'm not shooting a video, I still dress the part when I'm playing with my hickories, because I know there's a possibility that somebody might come up to me and be like, and interested in what I'm doing. And that's a potential new convert to the, you know, the hickory game. So, yeah, the clothes are an interesting thing for me. And you're right too. When people see somebody out there dressed, you know, like we dress, it piques their interest. And, first of all, they wonder, is there some kind of event going on that I wasn't aware of? But when they find out that we're just casually showing up for our round of golf that week, dressed that way and playing with what we play with, that's all kinds of, starts all kinds of questions that get them down the line of, potentially trying it themselves.
It's visual, my man. That's how you get people into the game. So that's real life visual. And then there's the social media visual. It's impressions, it's images, it's, it's going, it spins. That's what gets the young people and other people interested. They have to, just because you play hickory, but you show up in shorts and what have you, it doesn't make the same impact. It doesn't, but you're an ambassador. And that's the deal. And it's almost like you're doing the game a disservice. Whenever I go and I'll play, and if I just want to play a casual round or something and I'm not dressed the part, I almost feel like I'm, it's a disservice to the game. It's disrespectful for me to do it.
Yeah.
And so because I know how important it is, because there is someone that was just like you and I that were getting to the point where we're like, I can play or I can not can play. I can take it or leave it. There is someone else that needs to see us to be inspired to ask the question and then go home, do their research. And next thing you know, they emerge out of their garage, in knickers and everything else. I can't tell you how many guys that's happened to.
Yeah.
I personally, that I didn't know I personally inspired, but I inspired. You see him one time, and then 2 months later, this guy is head to toe and has his own bag, and he's like, "Hey, can you help me get more clubs?" I'm like, "What? I just saw you." But that's the magic of hickory and just being an ambassador and dressing the part. Just doing your part gets it out there. Yeah. And so that's the way to do it, is just continuing to just put it out there and just be your authentic self and just continue to share. And just, what's cool to you will be cool to someone else. Trust me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a good segue into World Hickory Day, because this is a day that, if I remember, or if I understand correctly, started as National Hickory Day in 2016. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, that is correct.
So let's start with that. Like, what was the impetus for starting something called National Hickory Day, and why did you want to get that, kind of get that out there and going?
I guess it would be, simply put, it was, you see all the wonderful tournaments. So going back to John Shippen and diving in, learning about hickory tournaments. So I started to do research about events and the yardage they played from and things like that. I wanted to make our first kind of, I guess, throwback event, if you will, pretty fun. I wanted to make it super neat. And I started to do a deep dive, and then I found Chris McIntyre's Play Hickory site. I don't know if you know Chris. Mm-hmm. And then, all the wonderful things. He said about, gosh, let me think, make sure I get his name right. I want to say Ralph Livingston, I believe.
Yep, Ralph Livingston.
Yeah. Anyway, he had so much history there. And then, went from there. I found the Society of Hickory Golf, and then I saw tournaments there. And I was like, well, there weren't any tournaments in Washington. And then I looked, and there weren't any groups in Washington at the time. And I saw everything was Midwest East.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't a footprint here. And so off of that experience, trying to learn about hickory and reach out for a mentor or just get information, it was like, you look and you see these people and you're like, man, these people they're across the world over here. I'll never meet any of these people. I'm not going to fly to, Michigan or something for an event. I've never played hickory. So when I started thinking about how would someone get an event started? How would they attract people, right? Like if you just wanted to play, but you had no one else, how would you do it? And that's when I thought about National Hickory Day and saying, you know, why don't we just pick one day and just celebrate it and just use the groups that exist and you know, all the hickory players in the state, promote it. It's everyone is promoting that energy at the same time. It could be phenomenal if it's just one day. There's photos, flood Facebook at the time, and you know, you started with Instagrams and, you know, obviously a little bit of Twitter then, and I just thought it would be a great way for a guy that was just in his part of the world, his golf course, his favorite golf course. He wanted to get a group going. He had a day that he could target. And if it wasn't a golf tournament, it could just be something on the driving range. It could be the collector side of it too. So National Hickory Day just wasn't for just playing hickory at the time. It was for the collectors as well to sell some of their clubs and sell some, you know, the trophies, the memorabilia, all of those things. So it was just a day for collectors and players to come together and celebrate, and not necessarily pack a suitcase, take your clubs and go across country. Because it's hard enough to get a guy to take one of his free weekends, if you will, put down his brand new Callaway irons to pick up 100-year-old wood set of clubs, right? You know, wood shafted clubs. So if you could do something in your own neck of the woods at a low cost, it would just be beneficial and it would just be fantastic. So that's where it started. It was just, how could, you know, I wanted help. So I'm like, how can we help others that will potentially be in the same position I am, you know, when in 2013. So that was the vision with National Hickory Day. And I thought, you know, I just thought here, and then I said maybe World, but I didn't see World right away, but it's fantastic that it's gone to World now. So it's pretty cool, man. It's really cool.
And it's been embraced. Other people have picked it up, and part of the reason I wanted to do this conversation was to, you know, as a subtle reminder to folks that it was your idea a long time ago that this thing has become where it is, and you know, let's not lose sight of where it started and who it started with. So I wanted to make sure that was out there, because I know there's a lot of people who are going to watch this video. I have a lot of new hickory golfers that follow my channel. Or people who are just about to get into hickory golf, and they don't know anything about World Hickory Day. They don't, you know, and it's obviously, like you've said, it's the coolest way, I think, to kind of, you know, celebrate our common interest in the history of the game through hickory clubs. And what's the coolest thing you've heard about anybody doing to celebrate World Hickory Day or National Hickory Day?
Oh man, outside of, honestly, it's really the coolest thing I've heard are people that have never picked up a hickory club picking it up for the first time and then making comments about it. There are certain emails that were sent, direct messaging, and then it's to me it's that. It's exactly the new people that were exposed to it. It's how I thought it was going to break. Just those types of stories, and then on top of it, it was. If you go back and you look at how many regional groups there were prior to National Hickory Day, which is now World Hickory Day, look how many more groups there are. And there are actually groups that were started that reached out to me privately that just said, man, I followed your blueprint. And just, we started our own group. Now we have 4 guys. Now we have 8 guys. And it's just that, to me, that's the coolest part, is that that's exactly what it was designed to do. Introduce those that haven't been introduced, and then start your own group. Guys really want, you know, some guys they can grow old with and play this game and just share the game with. So really, that's really the cool thing. I'm not gonna. I think there's nothing, you know, someone's ran this 120 person tournament or something like that. I mean, yeah, that's great, but it's the new people, it's the new ones, and the new groups that are formed. And that's what I think is important. That's the sustainability of the club, is the guys it's the regional groups. The regional groups, they're the ones that are going to keep this thing going. They're the ones that keep, they're going to be out recruiting people like yourself that are out there. Like you're in Connecticut. You're in Connecticut.
Yeah, for now. We may be moving soon, but yeah, we're in
Okay.
Connecticut for now.
Okay. And you're
Yeah.
part of Connecticut group?
Yeah. So my story with regional groups is we were in Lawrence, Kansas before we moved here, and I helped start the Kansas City area Hickory Golfers with a guy named Mike Needleman. And we didn't get a chance to even do a first event because COVID started, and then everything shut down. And then we moved to Connecticut. My wife and I moved to Connecticut. So on my way out here, or before we moved out here, I did a little bit of research to see what the regional scene was, and saw that there was the metropolitan Hickory guys down in the New York area, but they weren't really active in the same way that, the regional group I wanted to be a part of would be active. And I found somebody, Jacob Orcutt, who was doing the same exact thing that I was trying to do, and looking for somebody else to kind of partner up with. And so it was kind of a serendipitous meeting, where, and we end up, we live 10 minutes away from each other here. So, those are the kinds of things where, like I say, golf's a spiritual game. There's, I don't really believe in coincidences and things. Like, things happen the way they're supposed to happen. And if you kind of have that perspective about it, life gets pretty cool because you see all these things just kind of falling into place. And that's the situation here. I met Jacob before we even moved out here. We started the Connecticut Hickory Golfer Association. And then we had our first event last June at a Donald Ross designed course on Long Island Sound. So it's been awesome. Love it. And to your point too about, the coolest thing you think about with World Hickory Day is finding out the new people that are interested in it. It's the same thing for me with the YouTube channel. I get emails randomly from people who say, "Hey, saw your YouTube channel, watched a few videos and realized that I had some old, wooden shafted clubs, and I decided to try to fix them up, and now I'm playing them." I mean, that is so gratifying for me when I get those emails, because that was from day one. The whole goal was to try to just, show people you can still play these clubs. And when I hear from people videos to try to get their clubs back into shape, man, there's nothing better. Like, it feels so good.
That's what it's all about. That's one of those other things. And that's that extra effort. If you don't turn on the camera and do that, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's a misconnection. It's a misconnection, and that's I like, as they say, turn on the camera, show something cool, do something cool, whatever it is. You're going to inspire someone. That's all it takes. It just takes the courage to do it, right? And just the enthusiasm. It's really the enthusiasm. So going back, one of the coolest events we did was at Chambers Bay, right? And there were guys that flew out from New York, to play in that event. 48, we almost had 50 players, I believe, that day at Chambers Bay. And that rough was wicked, man, for the U.S. So
I bet.
So that's the best thing about it is just think of 50 Hickory players dressed in period attire, showing up at Chambers Bay, and just think of all the people that are looking around, have their phones out, taking pictures, what have you. That's the business card of the game. It's dressing the part, and that's kind of growing it. So events and National Hickory Day, that's the way to get people involved, and then put it on social media, man. And then a step further is what you're doing. Is just, that's not even in my repertoire. You talk about architecture and just, one comment you said, the weight of the club. Most people aren't going to think about it when you say, "Oh, this Hagen, just the weight of it," or it's those details, those little details mean a lot. So, you're taking it a step further. You're doing some cool stuff. So
thanks. Yeah, well, I think the thing for me is that I've just tried to put myself in the shoes, basically my own shoes from 3-4 years ago, when I didn't know anything about Hickory Golf, and the questions that I had that I wanted to try to find answers to. And I found some of the websites. I found Ralph Livingston's website, with all that cool information. I found some videos on YouTube, but I felt like, there wasn't the information that I was looking for specifically. And so when I finally, through a lot of trial, not trial and error, but through a lot of research, finally kind of pieced together the information I was looking for, or got some of the resources that, have been out of print for a long time, but I finally acquired, the Kleekmark book, things like that. I realized that I needed to start to pull together my expertise up to this point, so that if somebody else was in my shoes, they'd be able to find this stuff quicker. And the YouTube channel, basically that's how it was born, was like, okay, I'm going to just do these really quick repair videos of how to get a club from the flea market back on the course. And 6 videos, 4 or 5 minutes each, really, clear, concise. And those did not exist yet. There were videos that were like longer form, 20-minute videos, or just videos where the camera angles were bad and you couldn't. That was all, kind of born out of my 20-year career in magazine and newspaper publishing. I had some understanding of how to kind of craft together a story and how to piece together things in a way that, would satisfy somebody with a short attention span, which is, like it or not, the world we live in. And social
100%.
media trains you to want to, get the information fast. So, I did that with the YouTube channel, and, it's been really gratifying to see that actually has worked, and people are picking up on that and finding out how to do this stuff, and not just watch it, but actually do it. I mean, that's the cool part of it.
You're teaching, man. You're teaching people through. You're teaching, learning, and you're having fun doing it. And you're teaching, you're changing the landscape of it. Where, I mean, and like, I'll be honest, I said, some of the old traditionists, they'll just like, they'll do that little gruff stuff. And I'm just like, oh, well, you're not hurting the game, are you? Not at all.
Yeah. I try to be very honest with folks when I'm talking about stuff that I'm just learning about, and I'm happy to be wrong. I mean, I think that's probably my biggest strength as a person, is I don't care if I'm wrong. I'll admit it, as long as the information is correct at some point and somebody corrects me, I'm fine with, being the conduit for that information, even if I was wrong in the start. One thing I want to talk about before I let you go, is something that I think is real important. You've got your Bogey Chronicles, which is a popular series on Instagram, and I think that's on TikTok and YouTube as well through the shorts. Most of them are, obviously funny, lighthearted commentaries on what you see on the golf course with your buddies. But you posted one recently that really struck a chord with me, that I wanted to talk about real briefly, because I think it's important. And it kind of speaks to what the future of this game can be if we get together and make it happen that way. I don't want you to have to rehash the whole thing. In fact, I'm going to link to the specific Bogey Chronicle I'm speaking of, but it was a recent event that happened to you and some friends, where someone yelled something at you, from off the course. People can guess what they yelled at you, without us having to say it. But
it wasn't.
I thought it was.
Let's put it that way.
I thought it was incredibly important for you to have done that video, because what I said to you in a comment was that I need to hear. People like me need to hear that still happens. It doesn't happen to me. It doesn't happen to my friends that are, white. We don't have that kind of problem. We don't have that obstacle to overcome on a golf course. And if we're going to be the kind of society that I think we can be, we need to know that still happens. And so I just wanted to thank you really for posting that video and for talking about it, and for it hurts. I'm sure. I know I will never know how that feels for you, but I know that it has to hurt, and to bring it up in that kind of forum can't be easy either. So,
well, Chris, and that means a lot that you would say that. And you took the time to watch and and know that that's not normally what I talk about, or any of that. I usually don't talk about the negative stuff, and I'm not saying that particular thing happens to me every time I go to play golf, or to some of my friends. But I appreciate you mentioning that. And it's not always about what people say to us. There's still there's the looks, there's the different things, there's body language, there's I set tee times up over the phone, and then I show up and I'll say, I'm Durel, and they're like, "You're Durel?" And they're taken back, and you could just, I mean, yes, it's me. I'm Durel. I'm the person that set this up. So there's different things. I've learned to pick up on body language and cues pretty quickly to know where I'm welcomed and where I'm not. And so that chronicle, I deliberated on that a little bit. I wasn't sure if I was going to do it or not, but my thing is, I always want to show, or talk about what happens on the golf course, and, being true and authentic. That's what, those things happen, that happen. And so, I did want to just share it, and you'd be amazed on, like, even on TikTok, if someone said, "Oh yeah, oh, that sucks that happened to you, but what I heard is you're a bad storyteller, or what I'm hearing, you're a bad storyteller, and you don't really want to inform us on anything," or something like that. And I'm just like, wow. I said, well, I am a bad storyteller. I got to get better at that. And it's one of those things where it's not for attention. It's like, it's awareness. It wasn't for views, or I think the guy said you're dragging it out, and I'm like, you know what? It was actually kind of tough to do. Yeah. It was tough to do, and I don't, it's not something I wanted to do, but I felt as a person that is, an ambassador or a creative that's sharing, I wanted to be authentic and share, and that's pretty much it. That's it. That's it, man. And so, but yeah, I think it needs to be known. It needs to be less of it, because we love the game just as much as the next guy. And I mean, in that vein, Christian, lots of times I was the only guy that looked like me playing Hickory, and that wasn't always fun either. So, right. And that's, again, there's a game that I started playing Hickory because I wanted to do something. I learned about John Shippen. Yeah. And so, it hasn't always been fun, but again, I believe I play the game the right way. I believe I'm respectful. I understand not everyone's gonna like me or like anyone for that matter. That's okay. And that, I mean, that's just life. That's what, golf teaches us. It teaches us about life, right? That's why the game is so. Yeah, it's just, golf is still the greatest game ever played. It's the greatest gift that we have, and the people that don't play it yet are really missing out. Absolutely. Hopefully, with things that you're doing as the Hickory hacker, some of the things that I'm doing, we can inspire a big generation on social media, YouTube and Instagram, TikTok, to get out and play, man. Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that I can get out West Coast to play with you sometime. And if you ever find yourself anywhere, even in the Midwest, I'd love to hook up and play sometime. But yeah, I really appreciate what you're doing. And I'm glad that you took, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. I hope we can do some more of these conversations in the future, because I have a whole list of stuff that I wanted to talk to you about that I just didn't get to, but I don't want to take up too much more of your time. And Zoom's going to kick me off here again in another 5 minutes. Honestly, I didn't know until I contacted you, whether or not this was even something that I wanted to do. And so now I think I need to just get the pro account with Zoom so I can do unlimited meetings. I'm just using the free one. So they cut you off at 40 minutes, which goes fast. Well, yeah. no worries, man. This is what happens when you hit the big time. Hey, I'll be your guinea pig for right now. We can laugh about this later. When you hit like 5,000 subs, you have me back on. I remember when you were under 1,000.
All right.
I do want to know what's the one tournament you've played? What's the one national tournament you can't wait to play? Or
that I can't wait to play? I'm playing in the National Hickory Championship this year at Foxburg. So Pete Georgides event.
Oh, awesome.
With pre-1900 Gutty. Yeah. So I've gotten really into Gutty golf the last probably 6-7 months. Like that's kind of like my wheelhouse for Hickory golf right now is pre-1900. And I've even got feathery clubs now too. So I've been playing pre-1850 feathery golf out here.
Love it.
A friend of mine in Wisconsin actually made me a four club set of feathery clubs. And then I've got a partnership with Hickory Lane Featheries, who are the Denny and Kathy Lane in Illinois, make authentic playable feathery balls. Anyway, the answer to your question is, National Hickory Championship in Foxburg. I'm actually a lot better at feathery and gutty golf than I am at modern hickory. So I think I might actually have a chance at competing, in these, but that's, neither here nor there. I'm going to have a blast no matter where I end up finishing.
Yeah.
So
I haven't played featheries. I'm going to have to play at some point. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So right on, man. That's good. That's good.
All right. Well, I don't want to get cut off before I get a chance to thank you again for doing this. And I'm serious. Let's every maybe 6 months or so check in or something and do find something to talk about, because I had a blast in this conversation. I completely went off script, but I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'd love to keep the conversation going in the future at some point too.
Hey, love to, man. Anytime. Let's keep in touch. And again, thank you for having me on your platform. Keep doing what you're doing, man. And you're true and you're authentic. I mean, you really are the hickory hacker, but you know your stuff.
I appreciate that, man.
Stuff,
you do too. You do too.
I appreciate you, bud.
All right, you too. Take care.
You too.
Okay, so that was my conversation with Durel, Billy. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did, and I can't wait to talk with Durel again on a future Hickory Chat. Before we go, I want to show you the golf club that Durel references in the middle of our conversation that has a relevance to Black history and golf. When he first mentioned that he had a piece of memorabilia that he wanted to show me, I was excited because I thought it might have something to do with John Shippen. I was not expecting what he ended up texting me a photo of. So I'm just going to put that photo up over my left shoulder right now, and you can see why I was frankly disgusted by what I saw there. Obviously, that's the same word that was yelled at Durel and his friends when they were golfing on a golf course in March of 2022, about 100 years later than when this club was originally made. This is a Cochrane putter that was made in the mid-20s, I would guess. So, if you want to answer the question, how far have we come? As far as this situation is concerned, I would say we've still got a long way to go. One other thing I want to mention too. So this putter basically is a representative of Black history in golf for a lot of people. They don't know the name John Shippen, but they know that this club exists, or they maybe even have it in their collection. That's got to change, and I'm really hopeful that Durel is able to get more people aware of John Shippen. He got me, aware of him and interested in him, and we've got a long way to go, because what we need to do as stewards of the history of the game are change the narrative so that this club isn't the legacy of Black golfers, but rather the story of John Shippen and the story of Ted Rhodes and Calvin Peete and Lee Elder and all of the Black golfers that we don't know the names of yet, that we should know the names of. Shippen's story is significant, not just because he was the first Black professional. He was the first U.S.-born professional And at a time when we know the names of John McDermott as being the first U.S.-born winner of the U.S. Open, or Francis Ouimet as being the first amateur winner of the U.S. Open, we don't know the names of other individuals who were firsts that we should know. And John Shippen is certainly that at the top of that list for me. So let's change this. Let's get rid of this as being the legacy of Black history in golf and make it more about John Shippen. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next week with another video. Until then, take care.